Today on the AMP'D UP211 podcast, U.S. Paralympic athlete, rancher, and Father Kevan Hueftle. In 2005, Kevan, also known as Flea, was involved in a hunting accident which led to an amputation of his left leg below the knee. Consequently, Flea struggled with alcoholism due to the tragic loss of his limb and the constant pain he suffered as an amputee. Through perseverance and grit, Flea decided to defy the odds and would eventually compete on the U.S. track and field teams and medal as an elite Paralympic athlete. Flea is a beacon of hope for anyone struggling with limb loss or addiction. It is our pleasure to introduce Kevan Flea Hueftle. Kevan, it's so good to see you. Welcome to the show.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. And of course, I have been following you and doing lots of show prep on your journey as an athlete. And, I have to say, you are the first amputee, not just via podcast, but the first amputee I have met that lost a limb due to a hunting accident.
Yep.
So
yeah, that was a fun day. And
is this something that you hear? I mean, I've never been involved in hunting.
It's not very common. I mean, it happens once in a while, but
okay.
Mine was kind of a freak deal like anything else, and just, it wasn't the gun's fault. It just everything had to line up just perfect, and that seemed to how it lined up that day, and here I am now. So
yeah, I want to understand better what happened exactly. So yep. You're below the knee amputee,
yes.
And from what I remember reading, there was a series of surgeries that led to the amputation via the original accident. But I think where I'm a little fuzzy is what happened, like the day that you let's just say it, the day that you were shot.
Yeah. So that day was a Sunday afternoon. Me and my father actually took an old windmill apart. We were going to make into a deer stands for that upcoming hunting season. And I went to go scout for deer on top of this hill we have, actually just a half mile south of where I actually live now. And got on top of this hill and I saw a coyote, and I've grabbed my gun, I don't know how many, hundreds of times in my life, and grabbed the gun into the passenger seat and went across underneath the steering wheel and was going to step out of the vehicle on the running board, and somewhere between the swing here and the swing outside, the gun actually just went off on itself. And when it went off, it went in right, like about an inch above my ankle bone on my left foot. And it never really actually came out. I had a hole on the inside of my foot the size of a fist on the inside of like the palm of my foot underneath it. But technically the bullet never came out. It just kind of exploded. And so I was by myself when it happened. I was 20 years old. This is before the cell phone days that actually had good service, so I didn't have a cell phone with me. We have, on the ranch, we had two-way radios, business bands, what we call them, that we use for ranching and farming. And they have like a 30-some mile range, usually a little more than that once in a while. And so I don't know how long it took from point A to point B of me actually calling, but I know the bullet, the gun went off. I really didn't feel pain the second. I felt a throbbing, and my ears were ringing from the gunshot. And I looked down, and I was wearing Roper lace-up boots. And I undid the top of my boot of the laces, and my boot literally fell off my foot. Every seam in the boot, except for the top knot, had blown apart. So my foot went from being normally this size to my foot was about that big. It literally blew every seam on the inside of my boot. All the stitching was blown apart. It was blown all the way to the front of my boot. The insole was actually, we found later, like 20 feet away. It blew that far out. Wow. I took my sock off, shoved it in the hole I had on the inside of my foot, and got on the businessman radio, and actually got a hold of my grandma, who got a hold of my uncle, who called my parents, and they came and picked me up in an old pickup. They called obviously they called 911 in between there somewhere, and they were meeting. This is before road signs too. We didn't have, so it was just, people, you just told them where you were at pretty much. So Dad came and picked me up with Mom. He threw me in the pickup, took me on about a mile and a half down the highway where the EMTs actually met me. I went to a local hospital for Cozad, Nebraska, which they were able to give me painkillers. But until that point, it was pretty unbearable. I remember the ride, the EMTs were holding my foot, and I just very vividly remember the sound on bone because my foot was just doing this. Even though she was holding it, it was just, you could hear the grinding of everything on the inside of my foot. And it was top 2 or 3 pains I've had in my entire life. And that was, pretty insane. But we got to Cozad, where they actually gave me some morphine, which let me calm down. They started doing some pictures of it, talking to doctors here and there. Figured out there wasn't a whole lot of places that would be able to accommodate what I had going on with my foot. Ended up flying me in the helicopter to Omaha, Nebraska, to the med center in Omaha. Spent I think 10 days or around there in the hospital. Had 3 or 4 surgeries right away. They actually wanted to amputate it that night. Well, that night.
Yeah, that was the question that I was going to ask you. Was what was the?
Yeah.
Well, because when I think about what you're describing, how do you salvage that situation?
Yeah.
And I would have thought, okay, it's got to go. Almost like a horrific trauma that someone might experience, like in an auto accident or something of that nature. And how many subsequent surgeries did you have before amputation? And you're saying initially they wanted to amputate. Was there some feeling from family that no,
me.
Okay, so you were like, no.
Yeah,
we're gonna figure this out. We're gonna figure this out.
I wasn't no. I was like, hell no. I was like, there's not I was running track at Kearney at the time at UNK at a small college. I was running track. I was an athlete. You couldn't have given me $1 million that night to cut my foot off. You couldn't have. I was a very successful high school athlete. I was only a sophomore at this point in time. In college, you couldn't have paid me to to have it cut off that night, and
you're running your ass off. You're running your ass off. Yeah. So you're like, wait a minute, this is not happening.
Exactly.
Someone needs to figure out how we're going to fix this, basically.
Yep.
And so what did they say to you? How was that received?
Well, they knew my situation. They knew that I was running track at Kearney. They knew all these little things about me, and they actually didn't. Those 10 days, I almost don't remember anything of it. I was on so many drugs those entire 10 days. But what they've kind of told me is they said, that's fine. It's your foot, not ours. We can always do that. We can't always bring it back. So the first time I had a surgery, they pretty much just cleaned the whole wound out. It wasn't like they were trying to fix anything. The first actual about 3 surgeries was just, they were literally laying my foot all the way open. My x-rays, my foot was a Christmas tree. I had shrapnel that went all the way to my pinky toe under my skin. Wow. So they had to lay all that open to actually dig all the pieces of metal out and fold it back over. And then they actually sewed it back shut. But even when they sewed it back shut, I didn't have enough mass there left. I was missing bones. My heel was the size like a dime. It was tiny. I had enough that they put 2 long, 8-inch rods in my heel to hold that in. And then I had the Richter set, to hold the side of my foot in. And then I still had, you could see straight through my whole foot when I left the hospital. You could see the bullet where it went through and where it exited because I didn't have enough mass to sew back shut. But what I did have was a wound vac. And that's when I figured out how amazing those damn machines are, because holy crap. This was October 23rd, 2005. By January 13th, 2006, I was walking on my foot already. Now, I wasn't running or doing this, but I was literally limping around on my foot that was almost 85, 90% already healed. Problem I had was I had one spot that was never actually going to heal, I guess, all the way. It was kind of a really dead spot in there. But the wound vac itself was almost more pain than I actually had when I had my accident. Because have you ever been around a wound vac? Do you know anything about them?
Yeah, I've dealt with wound vacs with chronic care of wounds. So when something's not healing, they'll usually employ a wound vac.
So my deal was I had a sponge that was about that long that went clear through my foot, and they had to rip that out every single time that, the skin was and the muscle was literally grown to every couple days. And talk about, that was the most ridiculous pain I've ever had. That was worse, I think, actually than the accident, just because I knew it was coming. I knew the second they showed up how bad it was going to hurt. But as far as the wound vac wise, I healed really fast. I had great blood flow. I had everything down there. I had no feeling from the ankle down, and they had my foot fused. So I was never going to be able to move my foot hardly. I mean, it literally, even today, my mind as phantom sensations and everything, my foot, I only can move about 1.5 inches in my mind, like, which is crazy. It's not, I don't get the full range of motion anymore, but I was on it. It healed. I did some hunting on it, still did hunting on it. Like I was still being me. And then we had our local bull sale. My uncle and my grandpa had a bull sale that I was helped with. And I had to go to help with the bull sale. I tried to help with the bull sale and it just wasn't happening. The pain was there, but it wasn't like the pain was stopping me. It was just the mobility. I was never going to be a mobile person. I was never going to be a person that could do the things that I knew I wanted to do in this life. And so I called up the doctor, did my surgery. I said, hey, what's the protocol for amputation? And she goes, well, there's, like a 30-day waiting. You kind of had to prep you and this and that and make sure you don't change your mind. So on March 30th, 2006 is when I went in and got the old leg chopped off 7.5 inches from the ground.
Yeah, that is a part of the story I did not know, was that you actually reached a point in your healing where you went back to some normal daily activities, certainly not fully mobile.
No,
definitely not. Yeah, definitely not running.
Nope.
But you're through sheer will, and let's let's call it what it is. You're kind of stubborn to say no. You're not doing this. What? Because I'm trying to picture in my mind. Obviously, when something like that happens, and there is a considerable amount of tissue loss, okay, where there's just tissue, for lack of a better phrase, it's just muscle and skin and all of this stuff that makes up the organic matter that is human. When that goes away, it doesn't always come back. It doesn't regenerate completely. You sort of get a modified version of your foot, I would think, when you did heal. So in your mind, it was almost an exercise in, would you say, if anyone's going to decide that this is going, it's going to be me? For
sure. I mean, I always said that I was glad that I'm the one that shot myself, and I was glad that I'm the one that decided at that point in time to amputate it. Like, I couldn't imagine somebody else feeling the guilt their whole life of having an accident towards me. And so I'm really glad that it was actually, my own fault. And then I'm actually glad that I waited long enough to make the decision that I knew it was never going to be a foot that I wanted, or never could, do any of the things that I'm doing to this day with the foot I had. So, March 30th, 2006 is when we cut it off. I was lucky enough to have, my accident was below, like where they amputated was above the wound for sure. So I had such a clean cut for an amputation. Like I have good stitching. There's no, that's a godsend that my stump is very pristine. Like, of course I went through stages of like sores and this and that, obviously, but like, as far as the bob of my stump and, healing and phantom pain and phantom sensation, like I am very lucky when it comes to those regards.
I think that's a really good point, because very often I will, spend time with amputees that are a result of trauma. And what I mean by that is they're in an emergent situation, very similar to yourself. However, you had the injury in your foot, whereas they may have an injury in, an upper part of that extremity. And then the residual limb ends up being challenging in the prosthesis sense, where it either needs a series of revision surgeries, or people end up with extra skin. They end up with sort of this reformation process that occurs with residual limbs. I am also very blessed in that regard that when I did have my amputation, the surgeon said, believe it or not, you're lucky in the sense that we can do a very clean job on you, and we can make sure that the limb that we leave you with has a very good chance of acclimating to a prosthesis. And let's face, I've seen video of you running. Let's face it, you do well in a prosthesis. So
I do very well. Yeah.
It doesn't take a genius to go. It doesn't take a genius to go, damn, that guy's fast.
Yeah. So it wasn't always like that though. It took years and years for me to get to that point I am in the last like 7.5 years. But yeah, the legs I have now and where I'm at now, I'm not even really a amputee, to be honest. Like, it's literally a foot. Like, it just, the fit I have is so, it's just, yeah. So I can't complain at all about, I mean, the accident's of course horrible and this and that, but what shaped my life to the things I'm going to do now is one of the absolute best days of my entire life, for sure.
Yeah. No,
I
I
didn't always feel
you.
that way either, but
I hear you. And I'll echo that a bit, because someone will say to me, do you always know you're wearing it? And honestly, I do have entire days, thankfully, that I don't realize I'm wearing it.
Mine doesn't. I've left mine on, I think, like 18 hours in one day and didn't take it off once. Like, it's part of me. So mine mostly is summertime in Nebraska, humid, 110 degrees. I got to dump sweat out of it. Other than that, I really don't ever worry about it. So
right. And that, I think, comes from conditioning. I think it comes from your fitness level. I think it comes from the various muscles that you develop around your residual limb. Mm-hmm. So much of all those other working parts, all those other moving parts are critical to our mobility as amputees. I want to talk a little bit about your residual limb. The version of your limb after amputation, when you first, let's say, started becoming active again, versus now, and you said that was 2006, right?
Yep, 2006.
Okay.
Yep.
And you've been, we are going to, reverse back to some of the struggles you went through, but you're saying over the last like 6 or 7 years have probably been the most active for you, correct?
Yeah. So I got sober in 15. I've been active since pretty much January 1st of 17. I've been active ever since. Yep.
Okay. So the version of your limb, let's say, in 15, 16 versus now, how much change have you seen in your residual limb between then and now?
So in 16, I was on a sprint foot I got in 2006. It was the original Cheetah, literally in 2006. Went to Kearney, Nebraska, got it remade into a socket that actually fit me. Still didn't fit the greatest, though. When I first competed, I was in 8-ply socks in competition in LA. So it was a horrible fit for sprinting. Sprinting is all about direct contact. You have to have everything tight and neat, and it wasn't a fit. When I flew out to LA for the first time, I ran at games called the Angel City Games. I got the eye of a person named Nick Stillwell, who's actually the owner with Regis Woods of the Never Say Never Foundation. And they hooked me up with a brand new foot, a new sprint foot, which this is the part I'm getting up with my stump because this changed my life forever. So they fly me out. They told me to go to see Greg Davidson in Seattle, Washington, who's doing some amazing state-of-the-art things that not a lot of people are doing. He goes, you fly yourself out there. He has a guest house you can stay in. He'll make you new legs for pretty much nothing. Like, you literally get a flight out there. We'll take the leg with you that you have, the sprint leg you have, and you have potential to be very, very fast. I said, awesome. Didn't know what I was getting myself into. Obviously I've been through legs, how many years that takes, weeks and months of being in test sockets and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And they, just can't fit right, don't fit right, and you're getting frustrated and everything. And so I didn't have, the times I was an alcoholic, some of it was because of pain. I mean, it never fit. I would, maybe wear my leg at those point in times for 10 minutes at a time. I have to take it off for 5 minutes because it just, sores, and how bad legs just fit. Horrible.
Yep.
So I get to Seattle, Washington. I show up like on a Sunday, and I get there on a Monday morning, like bright and early. And this is no shit. I was in a test socket, I think, in his office for like 7.5 minutes. Like, this is no joke. Like, I was in a test socket for like 10 minutes. He's like, how's it feel? I said, it feels amazing. He starts making me. So Greg does direct lamination. He doesn't use any screws, no nuts. He puts your sprint legs or your normal legs on the back of your socket just by carbon fiber.
Yep.
Okay. So I have nothing there. So this is actually the original leg of me in 17 still. So I was in a test socket, of course, and he does removable inner sockets as well. So there's a little more cushion there, plus the gel liner I have, and I was like didn't trust anybody at this point in time. I got it. He made me 3 legs in 4 days. He made me 2 sprint legs in an everyday leg in 4 days from start to finish, which is incredible. Like the guy's literally changed my life forever. He saw some potential in me that he actually put me into one of his prototype sprint legs that he developed himself and let me try it out. And this is the point I'm getting to my residual limb from 17 till now. I don't have any ply socks on. This is the leg he made me in 17.
Oh, wow.
So I have not. So my leg literally from 17 till now, I'm probably and in 17, I was a little heavier. When I was an alcoholic, I was almost 200 pounds, and I cut a lot of weight to 160, and I bulked back up, and now I'm like 172, 174 right now. But my residual limb, the most I'll wear on this on hot, sweaty days, I'll put one ply sock on. So wow. I'm literally in a leg that fits it's like a glove. Like I couldn't ask for anything better in mine. And my sprint legs fit exactly the same way. They are just like part of me. That's one of the reasons I'm so successful is because it is a glove. It is like putting a skin tight glove on my stump, and it just fits perfect. So
yeah, and I appreciate you. I appreciate you sharing that, because so often folks will ask me, well, I see these these Paralympic guys, these triathlon guys, and how do I accomplish that? And my answer is always the same, which is a lot of it is about finding the recipe, finding the secret sauce.
Oh yeah.
Being willing to push yourself into those spaces, network, advocate for yourself to the point where you make the right connection.
Yes.
With someone that understands what your fitness goals are. And and I'm talking about like average walk of life people like myself, because, my socket is actually very similar to yours. It's a single strut design that's there's no post. It's, my socket just kind of dangles there, and, I had a custom foot made. So me getting to do the things that I want to do, which certainly aren't, anywhere in the physicality lane that you're in, but still wanting to reach my own personal fitness goals and do the activities that are so important to me. I was wearing, a lot of wrong legs for a while too.
Oh yeah.
And it's frustrating.
When I was an alcoholic, yeah, it is, because when I was in some Oster foot, for 7 years of my life. I was literally breaking every month, like shattering the heels and toes off every single month. Like the foot I have now, it's a sprint foot. It's like a cheetah, just set up different with a heel on it. I've never broken anything on it since 2017. Like it's literally the best. It's an athletic foot made for everyday use, which that's what people should be in the first place. Like the number one thing amputees do wrong their entire lives, they don't hold their prosthetists accountable. 100%. They don't think it's supposed to fit right. And I truly believe that if they think, they did all this work, they put all this time and effort in it, I have to just make it work. That's 100% incorrect.
Yeah.
If you're not fitting right, if you're having pain and it's not, if you go in there and you're healthy, if you go in there with sores and this and that, you got to let stuff heal. I understand that. But if you go in there and you're a healthy stump, or at least as healthy as you can get it, and you're still not mobile, something's wrong. You have to change prosthetists. I mean, this is your life. And that's part of the problem I had over the years. I had a couple legs that didn't fit right, and I didn't say anything. And so I was dealing with all the depression of knowing I could be a better person, not being able to do things I wanted to do. And drinking was my escape. My escape was, pain. I was in pain. I mean, so when I say Greg saved my life, he literally, I got sober before that, but he's kept me sober because I've had zero. I mean, it's been amazing. And so I just think, we just got to keep I always think that when young people that have have an amputation, they're always like, what do I need to know? You need to keep your process accountable. That's what you need to know. You need to know that it should fit right.
It's very good advice. I was with one of the larger, clinics, let's call it.
Yep.
When I started my journey, and I did get a lot of answers that didn't make sense. It was, that's just how it is, or
absolutely.
You're just going to be in pain sometimes, or
okay.
kind of like you mentioned, you're only going to be able to wear it a certain amount of time, per day. I was crazy anxious to get back to work full time. I live a very active lifestyle. I love to travel. It's a big thing for me. All of those things seemed completely out of my orbit, and it all boiled down to the same thing, which you're mentioning. And I appreciate your transparency in saying, if you don't demand the best, you don't get the best. It's just how it is. And you have to push to get the things that you need. And I went through, all of the skin breakdown. I went through wound care. I went through, all kinds of, abscess this and, sore that. And yes, I kept asking questions, making calls, researching. And I'm in a similar situation. I found the right prosthetist. His name's David Rotter, and he has.
I know who David Rotter.
Yeah, most athletes do.
We know. I've met him. I went to a camp in Texas.
Okay.
And his name was brought up a lot down there. I was 30 years old when I got sober. So I went down there as people, used to do the sprinting younger and they would do the triathlons later. Well, I was starting to sprint at 30 years old. They're talking about, you're doing things a little backwards. I said, yeah, I'm been that way my whole entire life. So his name was brought up and people about the leg I was on. So yep, for sure.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit more about that period in your life. Fortunately, for our purposes today, and I think for others to find inspiration, through your story, you went through, a dark period of your life, and you've been very beautiful in allowing people to understand, your battles with alcohol and, how that, affected your life. And I appreciate that, because very often people in those situations, and I know a few, they're looking for that beacon of hope. They're looking for, something to give them an idea of how to navigate those difficulties in their life. So walk me through, for the audience, how all of that sort of started. Were you someone that had any kind of struggle with alcohol before your amputation? Or was this something that just sort of arrived due to your circumstance?
So, before I drank in college and I'd partied, and it was more of a fun thing more than a necessity. And obviously, as soon as I got amputation, I thought I was going to be better. I thought it was going to be a fix-all. It's going to fix my whole life because I had this issue that's going to be better. And that wasn't the case. I had legs that didn't fit and wounds that didn't heal. And, my life wasn't perfect the second I got the amputation. And so mentally, I was not in a great place the entire time. And when you're in pain, a lot of the time, you look for any outlet you can to be not in pain and not be in your own head. And that was alcohol to me. Like I had a prescription pad in my foot. I could have got Percocets and Oxy whenever I wanted to. And I did abuse them once in a while, but alcohol was what I craved. Like it started out just partying even more and more. I went to a big party school at UNK. And we used to say you can't spell drunk or flunk without UNK. Like, that was part of it. And then it just kind of progressed to, transferred to a 2-year ag college, partied down there. I was really good at partying. I was very good at drinking. I had a very high tolerance. And then, even then it's like, am I an alcoholic or am I just in college? Like, because there's plenty of people I know now that did that in college that are alcoholics now. Graduated from college and I got home and never really stopped. I wasn't like the drop down drunk, but I was the guy that could drink 30 beers the entire day just because I had to sustain myself, just to be live, I guess, just to, deal with the pain and deal with the anxiety. Like I still say to this day, like I would rather get up in front, and I'm still the same way. I would rather get up in front of 1,000 people and tell my story and tell people about how I've screwed up doing this, this, and this, and how I've messed up and how I was a horrible person at this point in time than I would maybe sometimes calling the tire shop. That gives me anxiety, but doing this does not. And so that was me back then. Everything gave me anxiety and I was depressed 24/7. So I was looking for any escape I could. And then it started to the point where it was just routine. You get up, you have 2 beers just because that made you, 2 beers was a perfect amount, that you weren't drunk, you weren't whatever, you just felt great. And then every hour you had to have 2 more beers every hour. If I was going to go to town, I could drink 3 beers in 3 miles. If I was going to be around people for the next hour and I couldn't drink, like I just knew mine was more just necessity to keep myself alive. It felt like, I still obviously went out and had way too much fun sometimes, and I got, blacked out, this and that. But most of mine was just maintenance, is what mine was. Yeah. And I was
so do you consider yourself, would you say or consider yourself at that time you were a functioning alcoholic?
Oh, yeah. Yep, for sure. Functioning alcoholic, yes. But like I said, I still made horrible decisions, even though I wasn't maybe drunk all the time. I got a DUI, and I blew almost 3 times over the legal limit. I was the only reason I didn't pass the test was because my eyes were twitching back. Like I couldn't pass the eye test. Like I almost passed the sobriety test as an amputee. Obviously, one-legged is perfect for me, so I could stand on that for forever. And I didn't really even flunk the walking test. Like, so my tolerance was so high.
I've trained for this test.
Yes, my whole entire life. Yes. And so I knew the second I got pulled over, I was going to go to jail. But but yeah, that was one of the lowest points in my life. I've wrecked a vehicle. Another point, and when you start looking back at the times where I was an idiot, the times that I had my kids with me, or my son has never actually seen me drink a drop of alcohol in my entire life. I'm very proud of that. My daughter did. So the times, I drive around checking cows, drinking, casually with people, this and that, and I had been drinking the entire time before that, how much of an idiot I was. Anything could have happened. Something could have happened to her. I would never forgive myself. So,
yeah,
those things you look back on that you get emotional because, I was an idiot. There's no two ways about it. Like I was a dumbass for ever thinking that was a good decision, and as a man, you don't talk about your feelings. You don't talk about the problems you have. So you bottle everything up inside when depression, anxiety, pain, all those things stacked on top of each other. I had to do something. And that alcohol was the point that the medicine that I chose. And it was it was a bad choice.
But I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna mince words and say, Kevin, you're a fuck up, you're this, you're that. It's when you go through something like what you've been through, when we deal with the loss of a limb, you're in the prime of your life, you're full of dreams, you're an athlete, okay? Your body is this temple, and you treat it as such, and you perform, and you rely, on those legs and the ability to push through, those competitive boundaries, and suddenly all of it seems to have been ripped away from you. Someone basically,
all at once.
Yeah, it's like something just shows up one day and says, oh, by the way, all of that is over.
Yep.
It's over,
Yep, because when I was in high school, like I didn't drink in high school hardly at all. Like I was all about sports. I mean, I was football, basketball, and track. Like I was the guy that go to parties and hang out, but I did not hardly drink in high school. So for me to go from that to where I was at now, it was unheard of for me to be doing that be the person that I was. And I truly believe in my mind, like if I wasn't sober in 15, I'm probably not here right now. I'm probably dead. I probably escalated to something else because I was escalating from beer to vodka I was escalating from beer to hard liquor as I progressed. And
sure.
So there's not a doubt in my mind that I'd be divorced for sure. And I probably would be dead at this point in time.
What would you cite specifically, or what set of circumstances do you feel was the turning point? When did that become this needs to change, or what happened?
The night before I was at a cattle pinning in Eustis at our county fair, and we won. I was supposed to be sober at this point in time, but I was hiding drinking from my family. I drank. Didn't have any plans to stop. We had to go to a wedding in Kansas City the next day, and I didn't have anything hid or anything booked or anything for the ride down there. I was out. Like I drank everything the night before. So we drove to Kansas City, didn't drink that on the way down there, get down there and hanging out in the pool. And there was people around. I didn't drink that day. And it's like, I went the first day and I don't know how long in years without a drink. And I'm like, well, I can do at least one day. And then the next day was away, and it snowballed. Like there was no there's no like in my mind, I'm going to be sober the rest of my life. Like I wasn't thinking that far ahead. It was like, I took this day and then it was this day. And next thing I know, I was a month sober. And then I was 2 months sober. And then I was 3 months. And then I was half a year. Then I had my year sobriety. I've never been to any AA meetings. I've never did anything like that. The first year, I didn't even start working out the first year hardly. It was just me understanding that I can be sober. Like I can do this without alcohol in my life. And I truly, truly believe that I was so tired of all of the lies, all of the figuring out if I'm using a credit card today or cash or this debit card. So so there's not 3 days in a row backed up of me buying alcohol. It's a job to be an alcoholic. You have to be, it's a job. It's a full-time job to figure all the lies out and how to do everything. And like, it was exhausting to be an alcoholic. And like, I just couldn't do it anymore. Like I wasn't even to the point where I wanted to even be a speaker at this point in time or be an athlete. Like I just wanted to be sober. And like, like I said, it was the first year and a half pretty much of just me being sober. My August 7th, 2015 is when I got sober. And then I started training December 31st, 2016 is the first time I ran in over 10 years. Is when I went to Kearney, Nebraska, got my old leg redone, and I ran for the first time in 10 years.
So you're exhausted. You're like, I'm just sick and tired of this. I'm just done with this whole thing, this charade. Yeah, this charade.
Healthy, like multiple things, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm an athlete, and I'm not doing the things that, I should be doing. And now you begin to think, okay, I need to compete again. I need to feel what that's like. And what challenges did you face in, let's call it now, we've turned the page, the comeback begins.
Yep.
The first what does that look like?
Yeah. So the first challenge was an old leg I was driving, I was supposed to be in a race car. I was in like a Toyota Camry, like to start with. Like I was in an outdated leg that
at least you weren't in a Corolla.
Well, there you go. So I was already in a leg that's 10 years outdated, a 10-year-old leg from 2006. And I'm trying to compete in that. I'm training on my own pretty much. When I head out to LA, I get like 8th and 6th and 100 and 200 meters in the nation. Like my times weren't great. I actually placed 4th in the 400 because there's only like 5 people in it. No, I placed 3rd in the 400. I actually got home with a medal at nationals that year. And was in great shape. Yeah, I was skinny, but I wasn't strong. I got the new legs from Greg. That's when kind of everything kind of amped up. I got the better connections of people. I started, Jared Wallace, who's an amazing athlete, world record holder in the 100, who now is long jumping like crazy. He reached out. He kind of became friends. And I didn't know how fast I was going to be until, 6 to 8 months later. But it turned out that I wanted something that I'd been sitting on a bar stool talking about for my entire life. Like watching the Paralympics going, oh, I could do that. Or I could, I can do those things, or I could have been that person. And I'm sitting there and I have all this regret build up inside of me. And there's one of the feelings that if you want fuel for yourself, it's thinking about the past and how in my prime of my athletic days, 20 to 30 years old, I was drunk the entire time. So now I'm starting this at 30 years old, trying to compete with these 20-year-olds. And there's no more excuses inside of me anymore. Like I don't have an excuse left in me. If I don't do something, it's my own fault from here on out. It's not like, oh, you didn't, or somebody treated me wrong or this or that, or I didn't do it. It's if I don't put the work in and I don't put the time in, I'm not going to make it. And my first dream was just to make Team USA. I just wanted to wear that red, white, and blue and prove to myself that I could do this for all the years that I was an idiot and I was an asshole. So training I'm talking just stupid farm things as well. Like when I put salt and mineral out, the salt and mineral weighs 50-pound bags, and I would park 50 feet away and I would carry them on both shoulders just to walk over there and back. I would do things that gave me the edge over just lifting weights and running, in my head. Like I was going to have no excuses this entire time. And so I trained from 17 to 19. I trained nonstop. And 2019 is when the turn, I got another new prosthetic from Greg, and my times just started plummeting. Like it was like the first couple of years, I didn't have a whole lot of times I weren't getting faster. Like I didn't know how to. I was a 4x800 runner in high school and college. I'm not a sprinter. I had to learn how to do the 100 and 200. I hadn't used blocks my entire life until 2017. So now you're talking to a guy that was a middle distance runner, has to learn how to sprint now. And so that whole thing was, I still don't know how to sprint. I'm still learning to this day how to be a sprinter, like, to be honest. And so,
well, 2019 definitely didn't seem to be someone that didn't know how to sprint.
Well, that's when I finally learned how to sprint. Like, I was decent in 2019. Like, this is the funny part is, like, I worked hard enough for Team USA to be on my radar. In qualifying times, I put in for like tracks. I went back and ran track at UNK, not on the team, but as an unattached athlete, all their track meets, they let me run at all of them. And I ran some pretty damn fast times at UNK. And one of the worst track meets is one of the best track meets. I didn't understand how to get sanctioned meant. I didn't know what that actually meant. I thought you could turn times in after and then get it sanctioned. Come to find out, I ran a 22.97 in 2019, and it didn't count because I didn't have it sanctioned. That would have been a standard B time back then. Or 2018, sorry, and I would have been on Team USA in 2018 for a full year before I actually made it because the time didn't count. So I knew I was capable. Got an email and a call from Team USA and said, "Hey, you've been selected to go to run the Pan American Games in Lima, Peru." Now this is how an athlete's mind is screwed up because in my mind, I hadn't earned it yet. I hadn't ran a standard qualifying time officially. Now, unofficially I did, but I wasn't on Team USA yet. But I had to kind of put that aside because my goal had been made. 3 years of training nonstop, hard, hours and hours, Nebraska winters, Nebraska summers, time away from my family, like all of it finally come together. And the funniest part ever, and there's a reason that it happened, was I got the big suitcase. It comes in a huge box, all your Team USA gear.
Oh, wow.
It showed up on August 7th, 2019, which is my sober date. It literally shows up on my sober date 4 years later. The UPS man guy drops it off, and I literally bawl with him. Like, he'd know my story. He'd see me out there running in gravel and stupid weather and, my shorty shorts and all the stupid things that I do to give myself confidence. And he's like, "What is that?" I'm like, "Oh my God, I know exactly what this is." I had to open it up, and then I had to seal it back up because my kids weren't there. My wife wasn't there to see it yet. So I had to put it back in this box. So they didn't even know that I'd opened it yet.
Yeah.
And that was an amazing, amazing day. Because at that point in time, and it got worse, but I sacrificed so much at that point in time. The training I did, people had no idea who I was.
Well, talk about things becoming, like that full circle kind of situation where you had, pulled yourself out of the grips of addiction. You committed yourself to training again, competing, dreaming, of representing your country in the Paralympics, and you made it happen. You willed it to happen. So to have that moment, even that private moment before you shared it with your family, to go, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. This is kismet. This is my destiny, that I am doing things that, it's all come full circle. This is my moment. And now I'm going to medal in 2019,
Yep. And then, so to be that person, to know where I came from and to know that, my daughter's looking up to me now before she can look up to me. She's on the track with me, helping me run. Like, she's, 4 years old. She's on the track running with me on, just to compete with me. And she's having a blast doing it, and having her see her dad finally succeed. And then knowing that my wife stuck with me the entire time I was an alcoholic. I met my wife in 2007, sorry. That's when I pretty much started being an alcoholic, was 2007. So she never met me sober. So she's never really seen me. I mean, that was, obviously I hit it and it wasn't the party stage, but like, to have somebody that you love so much stay with you, even through all the ups and downs of marriages that you have without alcohol as a problem, let alone having that come in between us, was, there's no reason she probably should have stayed with me. To have all those things finally just be at your feet, and you open that huge blue suitcase up and you have all that red, white, and blue gear on there, and you get to, get your passport, and you get to fly down to Lima, Peru and compete. And, I get down there, never traveled like this in my life before. So I'm very much a virgin when it comes to the traveling bug, and I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm just glad the time change wasn't too bad. So that was pretty easy to still contact with people and still be in touch with them, because I was missing my family like crazy. But I ended up getting second place in the 200-meter dash, which is actually my better race. I didn't run a very good race down there. And then the 100-meter dash, which isn't my best race, I ended up winning from start to finish and come home with the gold. And, to work so hard for something and actually to know you earned something. And that was cool. But the cool part, when you're standing on the stage and you're with 3 people and they're all from Team USA and you're in the middle of them and you're the reason why the national anthem is being played.
Oh yeah.
Is one of the coolest moments of my entire life. I don't know if I ever can, that feeling.
That's out of body.
I was
right
crying
there.
on TV. For sure. You don't even feel like it's so surreal that you did something so amazing that they're playing a national anthem, not for anybody else. They're playing it just for you and their whole country's behind you and supporting you. It's an unreal feeling.
Yeah. You're probably levitating at that point. One of the things that I really admire about your story, and you're very humble in this regard, and I appreciate it. You've talked extensively about your family and your support system. And I meet so many brand new baby bird amputees all the time. People will reach out to me, audience members will reach out to me, and they will always, ask me, what do you consider to be one of the most important components of navigating the loss of a limb? And my answer is always the same, which is, what is your support system like? Because without a very solid support system, you're going to struggle. I don't care how determined you are. I don't care what your fitness level is, whether you're really active or you're really sedentary. As long as you have people around you that will guide, support, cheer you on when you're struggling, cheer you on when you're winning. You have to have that in place, because none of this works without other people. And you seem to be one of those people that I recognize and admire, because you're very quick to point out that so much of that has played a role, in your success. Your success, not only as an athlete, but also as a father, as a husband, all of it. And, I'll let you talk. I mean, I very much appreciate that, because, so often people get kind of focused on themselves a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Like, hey, look what I did. And you're very quick to be like, hey, I needed all these people.
Yeah. And I'm not easy to live with to start with, let alone an amputee, an alcoholic, and then now trying to go for Team USA. Like, it wasn't always easy for my wife and family to support me, because I was all over the place. Like, let's be honest, like, I am a lot. Like, I understand that I am not just a normal person either. So for them to stick with me, and it wasn't always, roses and rainbows, there was dark times that we've had where, I was pushing this so hard, I kind of lost track of other things in my life at one point in time. Like, it's all I cared about for a while, and other things did suffer. And looking back now, I mean, I would obviously change things how I did a little things back then, but knowing my wife and kids and how they support me now, we got over those humps and over those little hills we had to get over of. And they were mostly mountains, I guess, more than hills. But, they just know where I'm at now. And I would never be here without that support system. Like my dad, who was 65 at the time, he had to pretty much come out of retirement a little bit and start doing more work around the ranch for me to train 2 hours a day. Things that I was normally doing for the last couple of years with him. I said, well, I'm doing everything now, but I need you to pick up some slack on some of these things. And so he picked the slack up, which is amazing, and let me, train in the middle. Like, I would always train in Nebraska in the middle of the heat, because all our track meets seems like there is wind, and they're in Arizona or California or wherever they're at. You get to run during the heat. So I would always train in 1 o'clock in Nebraska. It's 110 degrees in the summertime. So I had to miss a couple hours of the day for lifting and for running. So without the support of, my father, because we have a family ranch. So without the support of that, and my mom and my wife, Nicole, and then the kids, like, it's amazing still to this day to see them come to the gym with me and see the passion that my kids have for sports now, because of, they know if you work hard at something that you can achieve it, and I'm very much living proof of that, no matter what your situation is, if you throw out the excuses, throw out the, I wishes, or that's not my problem, or we just had we just had this conversation with my daughter Chesley the other day about, I told her what excuses are like, and she goes, what? I said, they're all like buttholes and they all stink. And we had to go over this thing about how, if you want something in this life, you have to go for it. Like, and it doesn't matter what other people are going to say about it, or it doesn't matter what they're doing. Like, if you can control what you can control, and everything else is just noise. So we block out the noise and just, live for that moment as well too, which I'm getting better at as well, is living each day, even though my goals are so big, still enjoying every single day of those goals to make it there.
Well, and I think that that's very representative of what I would consider to be your legacy as a person. Someone who, let's say, is human, is not perfect, but is someone that has achieved great things and has never allowed any of those limitations or any of those mistakes, because that's how you characterize them. Again, which I feel is very humble. You still have overcome, those things, and continue to reflect on those moments in your life as, hey, I wouldn't be who I am, or I wouldn't be where I am had I not gone through what I went through.
Yeah.
And I always say, I'm at this particular moment, and I'm in this particular space as a human being because of everything that's happened before this. What would you say is your next goal, if that's what you want to call it? How would you describe that?
Yeah, so I've got a few, because I'm gonna look at the person I am right now in a couple of years and not even recognize that person again, because I'm gonna grow so much before then, because I just have, so the main goal again is a few months ago, I've been hitting the weight room ever since. We got to back up a little bit. In 2019, I ran a Lima, Peru. Then I went to the World Championships in Dubai and did pretty well there. I placed 4th overall in the 100 and 200 meter dash in the world. Missed 3rd place by 0.03 seconds. It was pretty heartbreaking pretty heartbreaking to lose by, faster than a blink of an eye. So then I had nothing but training. At this point in time, I'm 35. I'm already older than most other competitors, but I'm still doing pretty well. Of course, COVID hits in 2020. I was in the best shape of my life, the best sprinting shape of my life, the best workout shape of my life, 2020. So I had a full year of training with nothing, no meets, nothing, July 2021 trials for the Paralympics in Tokyo, Japan. What the new goal after I made Team USA was to make Tokyo, Japan, and not just make Tokyo, Japan. When I was going into the trials, I was rolling in practices. I was smoking the standard times. I was literally I've never been more confident in my entire life. And I wasn't just going to make Team USA in the 200 meter dash, but I was going to go to Tokyo and I was going to make waves in Tokyo. I was going to come home from a town of 400 people. This small town redheaded farmer was going to go to the Paralympics. He was going to make noise. He was going to come home with a medal. And I had every intention. I worked so hard. There was no excuses in the last year of my life. I went through some injuries. I got over them. I was coming into those trials in Minnesota, tip-top shape, the most confidence I'd ever have. I get to trials on Monday. I flew up there, and then Tuesday morning, I'm doing just regular block starts I did 1,000 times in my life. And I'm 35, 40 meters out, and all of a sudden, something in my ankle, the only ankle I have, my good ankle, decides it's done. And we didn't know at the point in time what it exactly was, but long story short, went to the trainers. We ended up spending that entire night forming an insole out of plastic to try to get myself to support my ankle. What had happened was I ended up tearing my posterior tibial tendon and spring ligament. Shattered both of them. They're completely tore in 2 pieces. You can't run on a foot like that. You can't do anything. You can't walk on a foot like that. So this was Tuesday afternoon. I was non-weight bearing until Friday and Saturday when my 100 meter dash and 200 meter dash was. And the trainer that I went to see, she knows me very, very well. D is her name. And it wasn't even a question if I was going to try to compete on Friday and Saturday. I had trained for 4.5 years for one track meet my entire life. None of the other track meets I would have given Lima, Dubai, whatever. I'd throw them all back. I was here for one track meet for the trials to make the Paralympics. And my ankle is not going to stop me from doing that. When I say my ankle wouldn't even work, you could hold my ankle up and it would drop. I physically could not move my ankle. So we did what we did best. She taped me up, pretty much made it stiff and solid. And I ran the 100-meter dash on Friday afternoon, crutched into the track meet, stretched, did like 125-meter stride. And I couldn't even hardly, the pain was unbearable. It didn't work. I was limping like crazy. Go to the starting blocks. I ended up placing fifth the entire nation with no ankle. And I actually ran faster than I ran when I won Lima, Peru. I ran faster in trials with no ankle. That's how much my training has progressed up until this time. 200-meter dash comes along, and I had no doubt in my mind I wasn't going to make the team, but this is my race, and I had more confidence that I could just, compete and be all right. I didn't even get to do a stride or a warm-up for this one. It hurt so bad. I did my stretching. I get in the blocks. And, of course, the commentators don't know that I'm hurt. So they're talking about how I didn't make it in the 100-meter dash. I'm not going to make Tokyo unless I do something here. And there's a video of me taking, like, a block start, and I'm taking 4 or 5 steps out, and my ankle I almost fall. It hurts so bad. Like, on TV. Nobody back home knew I was hurt except for my family and my coach. I didn't tell anybody about it. I competed. I finished. I got done, and I literally kissed the track because I thought that was the last time I was ever going to run in my entire life. Like, I thought I was done. I knew the ankle was just shot. I didn't know how bad it was at the time, but I knew it was really bad. So ended up having surgery in August of 2021, where they had to remove the whole tendon, replace it with a different one, sew my spring ligament back up. They had to arch my foot with a cadaver bone. Ended up cutting my heel all the way off, moving over with a full centimeter and screwing it back in underneath. So my ankle is pretty much, it was all reconstructed. I mean, it was completely redone. The ankle I had was horrible, nothing left in it. And she told me she made me a rancher's ankle, but not a sprinter's ankle. And for the first year and a half, I kind of believed that, and I wasn't going to really blow it up. I didn't really want to hurt it again and this and that. And then about 6-8 months ago, I was just working out for fun. And I started getting really, really strong. Like this whole entire time when I had my ankle surgery, I was lifting and I was bulking. I got to 194. And I got really, really strong. And then I cut back down to kind of like 180s, and I was still really, really strong. And I kind of just talked to my old coach, and I said, "Hey, can you throw me some just tracks, weightlifting workouts?" He's like, "Sure, whatever." A couple months of doing those, and I was doing my deadlift workout, and an itch got into me, and I deadlifted 500 pounds. I mean, I was like, holy shit. Like, I just deadlifted 500 pounds at 174 pounds. I'm like, this is insane. And I'm like, I wonder what would happen if I started a few workouts on the track. So I started doing a few workouts here and there. And now, as of January 12th, I'm full-blown training again for the Paralympics in Paris. So it's going to be a short turnaround. But, yeah, I'm sprinting 3 or 4 times a week right now.
That's huge.
I'm lifting 5 times a week right now. Like, I am full-blown, into training mode right now. So my goal is Paris 2024 again, but my ultimate goal, that's the goal. But I'm so much into speaking right now and sharing my story and traveling around and talking to high schools, colleges, whoever will listen to me. I like to think my main focus is that, but it's not. It kind of got turned a little bit to the working out part of it right now because I have a short turnaround to July. But I would give all the running away if I knew I could do something huge, the speaking side of it. But I was giving speeches and I was talking about going after your dreams. And I feel like a bit of a hypocrite on stage, talking about going after your dreams no matter what. And, talking about, you don't let anything stop you in this entire world. And knowing that I was not training for the Paralympics again, knowing that I was this close to making it and I didn't get it. I was like, I kind of had an epiphany on stage. Like, even if I do not, so I'm 38 right now. I'm well past my prime of running. I'm in the best shape of my life, though. I'm the strongest I've ever been. I'm still deadlifting 500 pounds. I just box squatted 400 pounds the other day for reps. Like, I've never been stronger in my entire life. I'm not fast yet again. I'm still too heavy. I got to cut down a little bit, but all the technique is still there. I don't have to peak until July. Like, I know we have a plan with my coach exactly what, to get there. And so I know that what I'm capable of, but the end result doesn't even matter for me for Paris. If I work my tail off and know that I gave it everything I have, I'm okay with not making it because I'm not fast enough, but I'm not okay with not making it because I got injured. I'm not okay with that mindset of knowing that I should have, would have, could have. If I get there to trials and I get blown out of the water, that is perfectly fine with me. I'm still putting everything into it. It's still going to be one more hell of a story to me to tell on stage to kids and to tell them not, go after your dreams, because I'm living proof. Like, I don't know how else to put it that you can do everything you want in this life. It just takes time and work, and no more excuses. Like, and the speaking thing means so much to me, because I know when I had, speakers in high school or that would come to that talked over you, and I didn't learn anything from them. My story is a little dark in places. I'm very honest with everybody about how I was this not great person where I am at now, and how much of hard work it takes. And I'm not sugarcoating any of that, but I can actually see their eyes light up. And when I'm talking to them about, because I was bullied in high school and went in elementary for having red hair and gap teeth and big glasses. And so I know that side of it. But you get to high school, when I was a jock and I was on, all these sports teams, and I turned into a bully part of the time. Like, I've seen both sides of it. So I know what it feels like to be both sides of that person. And if I can help, high school.
Yeah. What's the best way to get a hold of you for speaking engagements? How do you prefer people reach out?
So Instagram, I'm at Flea Speaks, FLEASPEAKS, right here on the shirt. Right now I'm working on my EPK, my electronic kit right now, and my website are being built as we speak. But if you want to reach out there on Instagram, or at fleaspeaks@gmail.com is my email as well. That's where I'm at right now. And I will say this, I'm very raw when it comes to my speaking, but I always tell people that I will never be this cheap as I am right now for speaking. Because in a few years, I have very big plans. I will never be this cheap ever again, just so people know. So
especially
get in on the ground floor.
Paris.
Oh yeah, you know how it works. So I've got programs I'm doing, and so the speaking thing kind of had to be on the back burner a little bit. I'm still traveling as much as I can and doing that. Because I love that more than training, to be honest. I love walking out of a high school, the high I have of knowing that I helped out of 500 people, if 20 of them, if 5 of them, if one of them got something out of it, then my whole life has been worth it to help other people for sure. And so if I can help them through the things that they've been through in their lives, and I can, deal with it, and I've dealt with it, and I can be honest about it, and I can change their lives as well. And I have a lot to learn about speaking. I talk really, really fast. I know all these things about me that I know I have to work on to be a better speaker. And for the first time, I'm being honest. If you're honest with yourself about these things and know you're not perfect, it's so much easier to change than it is to be, I'm good. Like, I'm not good at these things yet, but I'm going to be. That's why I said I'll never be this cheap ever again. So
I think I think your energy is infectious. I think that's a big part of your appeal, especially as a speaker.
When I can move around. I work the entire floor of a gym usually when I'm speaking.
I'm sure you do. So here's the thing: we're all going to be watching Paris 2024. Everyone's got their eye, on you. I know there's going to be great things regardless of that outcome, because that seems to be how you're programmed as a person. Please reach out to Kevin if you're looking for, a bargain phase of his speaking engagements. I so appreciate your story. It's incredibly inspirational, and I'll be honest, Kevin. I feel like so much of who you are and where things are going. Like, this is only the beginning. And I'm looking forward to following you as I have thus far, and I will reach out and once you get into those higher tiers of one of those world-renowned speaking engagement people, hopefully you'll still take my call.
For sure.
But thank you. Kevan Hueftle, we will be watching and excited about what's to come. I so appreciate you being here today and sharing everything about your story. I kind of feel like we only scratched the surface, but
isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it is. And I appreciate you. I appreciate your energy and what you brought to the show. And I think it's going to help a lot of people in so many different aspects, whether that be coming back from addiction, acclimating to becoming an amputee, reaching their goals, pursuing their dreams. Kevan Hueftle, thank you. My name is Rick Bontkowski. This is the AMP'D UP211 podcast. I want to wish everyone health and happiness, and we will see you next time.